It has been a tough stretch for the Philadelphia 76ers, who are 4-7 in their last 11 games and still awaiting news on an update on the status of Joel Embiid. But they did receive a positive update as Tyrese Maxey is set to make his return to the court, as we received news from ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski yesterday that Philadelphia 76ers star Tyrese Maxey has cleared concussion protocol and will return versus the Knicks on Tuesday, sources tell ESPN. Maxey has missed 4 straight games in the protocol. So we know that he took a little bump on the head going down just a couple games ago, that he did miss the past few games, the 4 games, as Woj mentioned there. And this does change the outlook for the Sixers moving forward. Though we know without Joel Embiid that Tyrese Maxey is absolutely the guy to have the keys of the Sixers offense and has delivered. In fact, without Embiid, he's been even better this year. That in the games without Joel Embiid this season, Maxey averaging 26.4 points per game, 5.5 assists, 3.9 rebounds in the 22 games without him. He also had the 50-point performance in the first game after Embiid initially got hurt, which I know sits on my brain and I'm sure the minds of many. And he also got thrown in some interesting conversation as it pertains to Jayson Tatum. So following the Celtics game last night, Tatum taking some heat for what wasn't one of his better performances. I honestly didn't think he played overly bad, but it definitely wasn't a standout performance from Tatum by the MVP standard that he seemingly wants to be held to. But we got this little quote from Celtics coach Joe Mazzula here that I wanted to bring up, that Mazzula defends Jayson Tatum after last night's performance, saying he had 26, 8, and 5. When Maxey did that, you said we couldn't stop him. So he's kind of going back and forth with a reporter when you watch the clip here, kind of indicating that there's different standards to Tyrese Maxey and Jayson Tatum. And guess what? Because there absolutely should be. That after all this noise, this recent push for Jayson Tatum to be included in the MVP conversation, that is a different standard, a different bar which your game is measured up against. For Tyrese Maxey, and I think the standard that he has been held to is far beyond what I think most would expect at this point in his developmental arc in his career. 23 years old, a first-time All-Star, that there are some high expectations for Maxey, who has reached those. But for Jayson Tatum, that bar is even farther. That is an even harder measurement to reach as far as expectations come. That there's been plenty of noise, especially of late. I think after back-to-back bad games last week, the conversations are kind of out of the window for Jayson Tatum having a legitimate MVP argument, but I still think that he's kind of mentioned in that same vicinity. If you want to speak on my personal opinions here, I think Nikola Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are going to be who it comes down to. Luka Doncic, I think, is an outside chance if he continues having the Mavericks climb up the standings and give them a true chance. I also won't fully count out Giannis. I think he is a chance, but to me, that's the list, that it should be between those 4, and of course, Joel Embiid was firmly in the running, and in my mind, the guy running away with the race before the injury, but obviously he will miss due to the games requirement there. But Jayson Tatum just is not in that same tier of category. And I get the conversation because the Celtics have led the Eastern Conference from start to finish this year and are still running away with it. But the difference being here that Jayson Tatum is not the most valuable player on the Celtics on an every night basis. When he plays his best, he's absolutely the driving force, and he's always going to be the head of the snake for that team. But there's nights where Jaylen Brown steps up, where Kristaps Porzingis steps up, Derek White, Drew Holiday, and that's why they're such a good team. So while this is not Jayson Tatum's fault that he has all this depth behind him, it's also a reason why he can have off nights in a way that if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander have that, the Thunder don't win. If Nikola Jokic has this, the Nuggets don't win. When you look around at these teams, Luka Doncic, if he does not have a terrific game, the Mavericks frankly likely get blown out is how this season has gone. That is not the case with Jayson Tatum, and that's why this is a different conversation. And I also would like to throw out there that as I dove into this, I did appreciate Tyrese Maxey being thrown in this conversation, because the conversation between Tyrese Maxey and Jayson Tatum is a whole lot closer than a lot of people would like to acknowledge. That looking just on their stats for the season, Maxey playing 52 games versus the 54 that Tatum has suited up for, 25.8 points per game for Tyrese Maxey, 26.9 for Jayson Tatum, so less than 1.5 or 1.1 in between the difference there. Tatum obviously out-rebounding Maxey, the size advantage pretty significant there, 8.5 to 3.8, which honestly 3.8 rebounds is still pretty solid for Maxey considering he's just around the 6'2", 6'3" range. And the assists per game, a massive leap for Maxey this year, was 6.4 per game. That is more than Jayson Tatum, who's having 4.8. Maxey shooting 44.8% from the field compared to Tatum's 47.5%, but Maxey shooting a better three-point percentage at 37.8% compared to Tatum's 36.4%, and frankly, I would bet on that number to increase throughout the season, that I think Maxey's percentage will go up He's proven himself as a 40% three-point shooter over the past 2 seasons, a guy that is ranked in the top 2 for three-point percentage across the entire NBA over the past 2 years. So I do think that number increases. I think he's had the difficult spot of having to take a higher volume than he's used to and have to generate more on his shoulders, and that likely will be the case for the next couple weeks. So I'm not super optimistic that this happens right away, but I do think when Joel returns to the floor, which I expect to be for the final stretch of the season at least, that we do see that number comes up. And not to dive too deep into these, but you can see with the advanced analytics that the win shares, the player efficiency rating, and obviously the effective field goal percentage, that Tatum getting the nod here. I'm not arguing that Tyrese Maxey is a better basketball player than Jayson Tatum. He's not yet at this point. But what I am saying here is that I do think that is a more apt debate and conversation that people would like to make it. That when you bring it up with Joe Mazzula, that I think he took this as a little dig at Tyrese Maxey. And frankly, I get that you got to ride for your guy, stick up for Jayson Tatum. That's your position as coach. But I do think that it was a little bit of a whack ricochet shot to take at Tyrese Maxey, who's a very good player and is set to light you up the next time that they will play, as was the case last time. I think Maxey's coming off his best performance against the Celtics in his career, and I hope that is something that he can build off. Now, with Tyrese Maxey back in the lineup for the Sixers, this does change things a little bit as far as the outlook for the remainder of the season. That we know the position without Joel Embiid, the Sixers very much just treading water. And to take a look in the standings at where they stand, as I mentioned, the Celtics running away with that top seed with a 50-14 record. The Bucks 8.5 games behind them in second place. They are playing much better basketball of late with their 42-23 record. The Cavs right behind them with 41-24 record. The Knicks have fallen off quite a bit, largely due to injuries. They are holding a record of 37-27, just 4-6 in their last 10. They obviously will be facing off with the Sixers again tonight in a back-to-back matchup there, but they're 13 games out of first place there. The Magic in fifth with a 37-28 record, 13.5 back. And then there are the Sixers in sixth place, 14 games out of first place, just one game out of that fourth seed, which the Knicks currently have. And once again, those two teams will be facing off tonight, which could come into play pretty heavily when we talk about these standings in the season as a whole. But they cannot afford to look over their shoulders. So the Pacers just a half game back of these Sixers with their 36-29 record, and the Heat a full game back with a 35-29 record. So there is a clump in the Eastern Conference that when you look at the difference between that fourth and eighth seed there, that just 2 games separating them. So still a lot to go down in the standings. And Tyrese Maxey is going to be a huge factor for this Sixers team finding a way to scrap 2 wins. The Sixers have a difficult stretch ahead of them. That this is not an easy stretch of games. Frankly, it is a little disappointing and just a poor, I guess, luck you could put it by the way that things shook out. That with Joel Embiid early on in the season, the Sixers did have the easier period of their schedule, and now the time where obviously it is the standings crunch looking ahead to the playoffs on the horizon, that you don't have the big fella to kind of take on these games. So it's not an easy position for the Sixers, but they are fighting through, that they are finding a way to at least stay afloat. And if they can find a way to beat the Knicks again, who do look vulnerable and played incredibly poor, both teams did, to be honest, in the way that they shot the ball. I know I mentioned the lowest scoring game in 8 years and the lowest scoring victory in the NBA this season was that Sixers performance. But let's see what happens tonight. I am more confident that Tyrese Maxey does change everything from this offense. It's just going to be a little prettier. That there's not going to be so much reliant on Kelly Oubre getting downhill 20 times a game, or Tobias Harris trying to back his way into a tough fadeaway too, as he loves to do, or campaign running the show. We're going to have an actual NBA All-Star there to settle the tides, play through, and really have a strong performance. That with Tyrese, you can tell he's a guy itching to get back out there. That frankly, he was on the court shooting far quicker than I expected to be the case, and him clearing concussion protocol in just over a week, which is a really good sign there. That concussions are always weird. You never know how long that those are going to last or how it impacts each individual person. But the fact that Tyrese Maxey is back on the floor and ready this quickly, I think is a great sign. So hopefully the healing process went completely smooth there and that he looks 100% himself, but I'm not expecting anything different. That through his career, we've seen some really clear examples of Tyrese missing a little bit of time and then ready to jump in right where he left off. So that's pretty much my expectations as they turn their attention to the New York Knicks once again tonight. I do believe that Tyrese Maxey is going to change the picture for these Sixers completely. That Jalen Brunson had a really poor game, so how much he bounces back very much will dictate who will win. But Tyrese Maxey is going to be ready to answer the call. That I think this is going to be an impressive Tyrese Maxey performance today, maybe an MVP performance in a way that Jayson Tatum might not be capable of. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. How close is that Jayson Tatum and Tyrese Maxey debate? I can't believe we're even having it. Frankly, when I talk about Jayson Tatum, like the clear debate should be Joel Embiid. But I think the gap between Joel and Jayson is bigger than the gap between Jayson and Tyrese Maxey, and I'm surprised to be able to say that at this point. Maybe that's a little bit of an indictment on the growth in the path that I think Tatum has kind of stopped going down. He's definitely still getting better. I think defensively he's improved a lot this year and just over the past couple years, but he hasn't continued to take these leaps and bounds in the way I think he did at the start of his career. But let me know if you think I'm completely off base on this. I do stand on it. I will go back with you a little bit if you want to, if it's a healthy debate there. But I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button, dropping a like on this video. I'll be talking with you next time on Sixers Digest, hopefully after another victory against the New York Knicks tonight. Peace.